I can't think of anything else I want to change. And then you get there, and what's the first thing that happens? Somebody who's never heard the music before goes like, that part sucks. I would recommend getting rid of it. I'd say there's like two moments like that. It's when you're recording the songs and you have to sit on them for so long, and then years down the road when you've played it a million times. Those are the two times your ears can get a little fatigued on music. But release day is always exciting. I play guitar while I sing. I need it as a mic stand. We grabbed one of our drummers, or no, a different drummer's cymbal stand, cocked it the right way, and duct taped the microphone to it. As if that wasn't bad enough. I said, all right, finally. They asked me to check the microphone, and I touched on my lip, and it shocked me immediately. Why is every song in four? There's so many cool things out there.
There are other meters out there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, I didn't even know. I didn't really think about that.
He's the frontman of a band that makes music about oppressive moments in history. Their new song, No Monuments, is out now, and their EP, Genesis of Error, releases July 25th. Scott of Cryptodira, welcome to the podcast.
How you doing, man? Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Excited to talk to you, hear more about this band. I read about like that message you guys have, listened to some of your music, and I'm excited to kind of take this deep dive with you into the music.
Yeah, I'm excited to do it. Always happy to do.
Yeah. So when we were first setting this interview up, you had the single "The Same River Twice" out, and now "No Monuments," which I listened to. Both awesome songs. What gave you guys the inkling that like these are good singles to lead off the EP?
Well, Same River Twice was the first one, like you alluded to, and that's a very special song for the band because if you listen or look at some of our back catalog, most of our songs are typically a little bit longer. Usually 4+ minutes, 5, 7, 9 minute songs, a couple of 10-minute songs. I mean, we're not shy about that kind of thing. And the Same River Twice is under 2 minutes, and
Yeah.
that's a first for the band as far as writing a song that isn't some kind of like intro or middle segue that's actually a song, properly, and clocking it under 2 minutes. So when the song came together that way, pretty much last minute in the studio, it just kind of felt like, hey, this would be a fun way to kind of return to the airwaves. We come back and surprise people with an under 2 minute sort of ass beater that just goes straight for the throat immediately and see what people think about it. I mean, we got a lot of reactions that were sort of like, oh my God, Cryptodira writing an under 2 minute song. What's the world come to? And that's kind of what we thought would be fun to leave with that. So it just made sense. And then as far as No Monuments goes, I mean, that's like the quintessential Cryptodira song in the sense that it does everything that we normally do, but I'd say in the most concise and mature way that we've ever done. So it feels like that's a gift for fans who have been there forever, and it's also probably the best sample plattering for any new fan of like what does this band do? I'd say just listen to No Monuments and you'll get a decent idea of most of the things that we do.
That's great. Yeah, that's usually a question I ask guests later on. Like, if there's someone trying to get into you, what song would you recommend? So, there's right there. If you're listening to
I'm
this,
way ahead
go
of it.
check out "No Monuments" by Crypto Dira. And so, the same river twice with it being so much shorter, like you said, than some of these other songs. Was it an intentional thing of let's make this a shorter one and things like that, or was there kind of a pressure of like wanting to add more, wanting to make it longer and more expansive, like many of your other songs?
It's initially I'd say it was the complete opposite, and the reason behind that is because we wrote a regular air quotes Cryptodira song that was probably in the neighborhood of 4.5 something minutes, whatever, and it had your standard clean sections and singing sections and heavy sections and whatever. And when we brought it to the studio to record this EP, we had the three songs that were on it, and when the producers who were Greg Thomas and Chris Teddy, when they were kind of combing through the demos on day one to see where we were going to start, they just came to us earnestly and they said, "Look, track one, which is No Monuments, and track three, which is the and being the title track, are really strong, and the middle track is like pretty good, but the other ones that we feel are much better. So we got to figure out what we're doing with this middle one." And I love that proactive approach that the studio took instead of just being guys who kind of hit record and collect their paycheck. They were very involved in making sure that the record came out the best it possibly could have, and they were just honest with us and said, "It's not a bad song, but it's not your best. So why don't we make something cooler?" And as those conversations sort of progressed over the next, 10 or so minutes, they presented us with a kind of radical idea, which was take the middle heavy section of the song, which was like one riff at the time, and just flesh it out and write yourself out of that section, write yourself a short, ass beater song. Like you guys love Converge, you guys love bands like that. I know you're all prog nerds, but why can't you write a 2 minute song? And we were like, I guess we never thought of it that way, I mean that those influences have always been present in the music, but they never got their own song essentially. So we kind of looked at each other and we're like, you know what? I like that idea. Let's just try it. And then the pressure was on immediately because we only had 1 week to record this EP, and now here we are essentially faced with the task of tearing one of our songs to pieces, rewriting it, writing new, riffs and writing new drum parts and some rearranging vocals and all this stuff. And we did it. So while Matt was tracking drums, who's our drummer, while he was tracking drums, Mike and I, our guitar players, we went in separate rooms and we wrote a bunch of riffs and came together with the producers. And then we ended up essentially all arranging a 2 minute song together or under 2 minute song together. So it was done essentially, with a gun to our head, so to speak. And I think that was kind of just a challenge we've never had before because our band always took its time writing, really. It's kind of a fault sometimes we really, try to over dial things, I think, sometimes. And this is our first chance to go, hey, look, you got this amount of time, write the song. It is what it is. Can't think about it. Just whatever's cool, just do it. And
Yeah.
that's how Same River came out that way.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think like it can be a pro or a con, but like there are bands I listen to that, like you said, take their time on music and like, similar to what I've seen looking back at your guys' discography, there's like gaps between releases of just like working on new music, kind of perfecting it or like trying to get it to a quality that they have in their minds. And so with this EP, like how long would you say like start to finish has this process been, or what was like the starting point of this upcoming EP?
Yeah, it's sort of hard to pinpoint almost because the gaps in our releases, one of them was certainly because COVID delayed one of our releases for about
Yeah.
a year, which of course we all went through. That's no excuse. And then after that we were doing a lot of touring and we released a couple of singles in 2022 and 2023. But between proper records, it's been since 2020. That was our last full length record. So we did a tour in 2023 with Between the Buried and Me and Haken over in Europe, and we had a lot of songs that were written for our next full-length record, and something about that tour kind of recalibrated our brains a little bit. We were watching these amazing bands. I mean, BT Bam's one of my favorite bands in the world, so to be able to tour with them was a treat, and just watching the sort of like level that they had in their songs and Haken as well, and we're going like, I don't know. I think the stuff we wrote at home just isn't that good. And we kind of came home and had a good honest look in the mirror and just said, this stuff is okay, but we need to come up with things that breathe more and things that have more dynamics and things that give the listener something to hold on to perhaps a little bit more. And it kind of recalibrated our writing process a little bit. So we started from scratch in the late winter, early spring of 2023, and then started writing what we thought was going to be a full-length record. And then as the process was sort of going, we wanted to so badly to share what was going on like inside the band. We saw that the gap was opening on since our last release. And
Yeah.
we said, why don't we take, out of the handful of songs we had written, we said, why don't we take these three that we really love and put an EP out while we finish our record? And that way people get a taste, we get ourselves back going again, we get to play a bunch of shows, but the writing process has never stopped. So our full-length record is already probably 50 to 75% written. So we're trying to do our very best to make sure these gaps never exist again. So this EP will come out and then
Awesome.
we keep moving and then record a record hopefully early next year and then just keep rolling, and keep the process streamlined from here.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome because it's similar to my favorite band 21 Pilots is doing something like this where they were big on like not only like gaps in releases but like you won't really see them in public between releases, like
Yeah.
they go dark on social media, everything for like 2 years and then an album. And for I think the first time at least in a while, maybe ever, it's like I think around a year, just over a year since their last album. They like put it out, toured, and then have already announced another album. And they were talking about in an interview like it's the first time they're releasing something in stride, as they called it, and they
Yeah.
didn't really take that break, and they want to just keep the momentum going. And I think for depending on the band, that can also be a help that like I think once you take a break and you look at a release plan and a tour cycle, like it can feel so huge and like such a big task to take on versus like if you've been doing it in the past year or however many months, like it's natural to just keep going with it and
Yeah, and
everything.
I think there's something to be said for staying in stride. I mean, there's obviously an element of burnout that can occur if you're doing
Yeah.
too many, records tours, records tours, records tours. So there's always a good, good reason to take a break at some point. But for us, it's never been about taking a break. It just felt like we've always been gunning, whether it's touring or writing or what have you, or what. And again, it's not a great excuse, but that whole COVID thing really threw us for such a loop. We had recorded a record that was finished in January of 2020, so it was like right before the proverbial shit hit the fan, and from there it we sat on this album for such a long time because the label, rightly so, did not want to release it in the middle of all that chaos, and then eventually they grew a little, trigger happy and changed their tune and said, okay, it's enough waiting. We gotta get this record out, and kind of pushed it out in December of 2020, which is probably the worst thing anyone could ever do. The end of the year, everyone's already got their year-end lists made. You're kind of missing all the press coverage, and the COVID pandemic was still raging on, and it just it really felt like the band took a minute to recover from all that misery. And then we tried adapting and doing a live stream thing like everybody was doing, and then of course tours limped their way back. People were doing tours and then canceling them and starting them. And okay, we got 2 weeks in, and now it's canceled, and it was just such a bad time. So it felt like it was right when our band was really getting its feet off the ground and growing its legs, and then we got cut at the knees a little bit. So I don't want to make excuses for ourselves, though. It's just,
Yeah.
it's
No.
time. It's
But
time for us to keep moving and moving faster.
yeah, but it seems like you guys have been growing. I'm sure the CP and full length are gonna cause more growth coming in the future. And the last thing I wanted to talk about with this EP is actually just like the actual physical vinyl and the packaging of that because I was taking a look at it and I just love the like I don't know like splatter blue kind of look of it. Take me into that process of coming up with the vinyl packaging.
Yeah, I mean, vinyl and physical media as a whole will just start, they hold a very special place in our band's hearts. We're all kind of old school that way. We all collect vinyl and we all like to buy movies and all that kind of stuff because I just think there's just no better way to consume music. So when it comes to things like the vinyl and the packaging, we do, despite not having a giant budget, which is pretty necessary to do, immersive packaging, because anyone who's ever bought vinyl will tell you it's extremely expensive. Despite not
Yeah,
having a big budget, we did, I think, a lot to make this record look awesome. I mean, there's two beautiful variants there. They both came out amazingly. I just got my hands on my copies actually this week, and they look amazing. The discs are very high quality. The sound is the best we've ever sounded on vinyl, and the inside jacket has a lot of really cool photos on the insert that Mike, our guitar player, took on a Polaroid camera during the recording process. So there's this massive
that's
collage
awesome.
of seeing what the inside of the studio looked like and what we were doing and all that kind of stuff. So I think anyone who's a fan of the band will get that and really enjoy kind of digging through that stuff, and the lyrics, of course, and all that. And I love the artwork too. I mean, it's very different for what we've ever done. All our other stuff looks a lot more like metal and a lot more sort of fantasy looking and everything. And this one has such a more harsh and industrial look to it. And I really just like how striking the front cover imagery is and stuff. So, but more to that too. But I'm not sure a lot of people realize is that it's only a 3 song EP, but it's a 12-inch vinyl disc anyway. And side A is the new EP, and side B is actually two bonus tracks that are singles that we released in 2022 and 2023, but they only existed on Spotify and digital prior to this. So this is the first
Yeah.
time those songs are being sort of immortalized on wax, if you will. So anyone who's into collecting physical music, that's the only way to own those 2 songs is to buy this vinyl.
That's awesome, and like an added treat almost for people who get the vinyl for this EP. I think that's awesome. I have like started in the past couple years building up a vinyl collection of my own. So whenever there's a cool added feature like that, whether it's like some bonus tracks or just cool like variants, like that always gets me into it and makes me want to buy it a bit more. So I
Yeah.
think I'm hoping that leads to a lot of success both with the EP as a whole and the vinyl sales. Um, Sticking to the music side of things, I want to get into you mentioned that you felt you were cut at the knees a bit with COVID and everything, but like for any artist, any band, I feel like you're approaching a huge milestone of almost 200,000 Spotify streams on Dante's Inspiration. Like, just take me into the success of that. Did you have a feeling that this was going to be a big song? Was it taking you by surprise? Like, what? Just everything around this song. Take me into that whole whirlwind.
It definitely was the opposite of a song that we thought would have any success. And the reason for that is that it's probably the most deranged song on that album. It's I mean anyone who's not familiar, anyone who isn't like well versed in listening to like the Dillinger Escape Plan or something similar would probably hear that song and think it just sounds like trash cans falling down a staircase. And it was written ironically in a weird way as like a joking like revenge song because our guitar player was getting very sick of seeing a lot of things build as like some new band that would come out and it would be like this is the craziest most bizarre thing you ever heard and you listen to it and you're like I've heard this like 20 times before, like
Yeah.
this isn't new. And like he kind of got like a little bit of like a bug in his pants about it and he was like I'm gonna write something that's insane, and so it started that way. It started purely for the purpose of being chaotic. And the middle section's got like this weird King Crimson sort of like weaving guitar pattern thing with like a major second harmony at one point, which really just sounds very grating to the ears. And I don't know, and we put the album out, and that song got picked up by a couple of playlists because honestly, in 2020 at the time, and very much still now, the way these things get streams racked up on Spotify is purely by being put on some kind of playlist that a bunch of people who subscribe to said playlist will then pick up on. And I think Spotify picked that one up and put it on like a metal playlist or something, and it just still is there after like
Yeah.
5 years. I
Awesome.
don't know if somebody forgot to take it off or what, but I'm not complaining. And yeah, it's a cool track. We played a lot live. It's wacky. We opened our set with it last year and a couple years ago in Europe when we were out with Between the Buried and Me, and I remember just being like, we can't open with Dante's Inspiration anymore. Like my body needs time to warm up. Like this song
Yeah.
is just like so all over the place, and I was like, whew, let's start with
Like
something
you're
next time.
starting the show at 100
Yeah,
immediately.
it's like the gun goes off and you're sprinting immediately, no warm up to that song at all. But yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think it's a testament in a way to kind of not compromising when you're writing songs because you can think so hard about what someone's gonna like or what is popular now or what's trendy, but then you look at our catalog and the song with the most streams is probably one of the wackiest songs we've ever wrote because people I really do still believe that despite people hopping on trends and just trying to like ride what is currently popular. I do think at the end of the day, the more unique stuff is what people will cling to on any kind of like long-term scale.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's like that's one of the things I love about like this whole digital push of Spotify, YouTube, everything is that like kind of forever aspect of it. Like you're gonna the Beatles, for example, had such a huge fan base when they came out, and then even now with like YouTube and Spotify and like whatever documentaries they get on Disney Plus, for seemingly ever at this point, every new generation that comes into the world, all those people are going to be able to discover the Beatles and listen to
Yeah.
the Beatles, and it's not gonna fall off. It's not gonna disappear. You're not gonna have missed the moment of that. Like you can always find new music, and there's always gonna be hopefully new new Cryptodira fans
Yeah.
coming in and finding the music for the first time.
Yeah, there is definitely an immortalizing aspect to digital that even physical couldn't do, which
Yeah,
I prefer physical, but you're totally right about that. I mean,
yeah.
this stuff hits the airwaves and it no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the earth forever, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, yeah. So just that for like coming up with the name Cryptodira in the first place, take me into that. Where did the name come from? Forming the band, just anything like that.
We were a bunch of young kids who were naming a band, and we liked a lot of bands that had giant animal names. That's really it. We thought Mastodon was great. We thought Pelican was great, and we said, well, it worked for those guys, but why don't we give it a shot? So we did our combing around on encyclopedias and all those kinds of things and like looking for the coolest kind of, like Latin taxonomic name or something and eventually stumbled upon the Cryptodira. I said, wow, that's really cool. What is that? And clicked through on it, and a giant image of a huge tortoise showed up, and I was like, "That's awesome! Tortoises are awesome, they're." And then we kind of, derived a symbolism from it too. There's something about the patience and the longevity of something like of a tortoise. They've been
Yeah,
around forever. They will be around forever. And yet they're slow, steady, patient, and standing the test of time. And we're like,
yeah.
well, that's what we want to be. We want to be the tortoise of music. Why not? Who cares? And
Slow and steady wins the race.
that's right, yeah. And it's funny because the name itself, it sort of implies more than what's really there because I think when people see the word crypt, they think of like, sort of like the root word of like death or something
Yeah.
the crypt keeper or something. But when you really look at it, it's really just a tortoise. And it's kind of, I think it's funny, internally for people to kind of do that digging and Google it. And now we've kind of ruined the search profile for any scientist who's looking for like the tortoise. Because if you just Google the word now, it's like us and a bunch of turtles kind of fighting for search results. So
Yeah. Which one are they going to research?
hopefully
And
us. I think we've done enough
yeah.
research on tortoises at this point. It's been a million years. We've got it. They're
I
in
think we
shells.
get the point. Slow, shall we like
Yeah,
come on.
they'll live forever. So we only got so many years. The tortoise is gonna be around forever. So
Yeah, exactly. No, that's awesome. I didn't like know the full story of it being like this huge tortoise and everything. And so it is funny because it gave that like, especially with the music you guys make that darker kind of like heavier vibe. And so I like contrasting that with the tortoise is awesome.
yeah, we've
Um,
sold plenty of t-shirts with tortoises on them, and it works.
that's
People seem to
awesome.
like it.
Hey heroes, sorry to interrupt that podcast episode, which I hope you are enjoying, but I wanted to tell you about my clothing line, Quest Clothing. Ever since I started really pursuing YouTube and music and all these creative things that I do, I've dreamed about starting this clothing line specifically. I had the name, I had the idea like for years before I started it, and now it's finally here. You can wear clothes like this. I have sweatshirts available, t-shirts, even clothing for like my music with cover arts and lyrics and things like that. It's all super, super cool. And right now is the best way for you guys to support me across everything I do. So be sure to check out the Quest Clothing web store with the link in the description and follow at Shop Quest Clothing on Instagram for updates about collections, discounts, things like that. Anyways, I don't want this self-sponsorship to take too long, so let's get back to the episode.
Well, like looking into this and reading more about Cryptodira, I did the search and found you guys. Didn't look into the journals, but I was reading more about on like adding Vincent, the bassist, to the band, and like take me into that decision making process. Was there any like whole band talks of like adding a new member or like what kind of gave you guys the inkling that was a move to be made?
Well, it all came together very naturally, very luckily because we had the same bass player from I want to say 2016 till about very early this year. So you figure about 7 years is our old bass player Jeremy, who's a great friend of the band and was a soldier with us on many a tour, and we're all still great friends. But it just was time for him. He was moving on to different things in his life and getting his professional career was taking off in a different direction. So it was just a very mutual sort of like, hey, I think it's time for me to part ways with the band kind of thing, which you always appreciate when those conversations go that way and they don't go sour or anything and it works out in everyone's favor because it's just better for everybody involved. But of course, that puts you in the position then of trying to find a new member. And then at the same time, our drummer was living with a good friend of ours who is Vin, who's now in our band. And Vin plays in an amazing band from Long Island called Moontooth. That is just my favorite band from around here. Just one of the coolest bands I've ever seen live. Honestly, they're just such a great time. And so we've known Vin for a long time. I mean, we've toured with Moontooth before. We've hung out at a million shows. And like I said, Matt and Vin became roommates not too long ago, maybe like a year prior to this. So when it came time to switch bass players, we actually had somebody else that we were thinking about working with right off the bat, solely because we truly didn't think Vin would join our band because he's a great bass player, and not that we don't deserve a great bass player, but he's just very busy. I mean, Moontooth's a busy band that does their own kind of thing, and we just didn't think to ask somebody like that. It's almost like asking the prettiest girl at the prom to go like dance with you. Like it didn't
Yeah.
feel like reasonable, you know? And then when Matt showed him our new EP and like when it was not released yet, nothing was released yet, and he just kind of said, "Hey, like, what do you think about the stuff we've been working on? It's coming out soon." And he was like, "This is awesome." And he's like, "You said you're still looking for a bass player?" We said, "Yeah, we're kind of looking around." And he's like, "Well, why didn't you ask me?" So I don't know. I didn't think you would do it. And then Matt told us that, and I called our guitar player Mike, and I said, "Look, man, like if he's got any interest, we got to pull the trigger on this now. He's the best, just the best guy and great player and everything." So it's just we took the plunge, and then I called Vin a few times. We had a few conversations about what it would look like moving forward, being in two busy bands for him, and we were all willing to sort of make concessions to make it work because it's just the best fit, and he's been amazing. He's a very positive force, incredible player, and the work ethic is through the roof. I mean, this is the kind of guy who, you can play a song with a million notes in and he misses one, and you all go, "Yeah, we sounded pretty good," and he'll go like, "Nah, I gotta clean that up,"
He always
that's the
wants to
kind of
keep
work
getting
ethic.
better.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the kind of work ethic the rest of us have. So it's a perfect fit. So I'm over the moon to have been in the band. We're dying to get our first show under our belt with him because we haven't played yet, and that's going to be in a couple weeks. So
Yeah, yeah, you have a couple of shows coming up, and so excited for you guys to get on the road, have this new lineup hit the stage for the first time. But like I definitely relate to that. I make some music of my own, and definitely have felt that of like knowing someone I could theoretically collaborate with, but I don't feel like I'm on the same level as them, and so I'm like trying to shy away or like pick someone else
yeah,
instead, and
let
it's
us be
like.
a lesson, man. Just shoot your shot. And somebody told me, our old
Yeah,
manager told us once. He said, "No's are free. Just ask."
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I've gotten better over time. So and this story, this lesson has absolutely inspired me. So I'm gonna continue shooting that shot. Um, so I'm curious. I mean, obviously, you haven't had much experience with live shows yet, but like you mentioned or something I read mentioned like this kind of marking a new era for the band. What about adding Vin is gonna change things or what do you see as like the future of Cryptodira?
Well, the adding Vin was certainly in conjunction with a mindset change that was already taking place, and it's a perfect sort of way to usher that in is the way I would describe it. Like I said, when we did that tour between the Bury to Me and Haken, and then coming home and rewriting a whole record and saying like and throwing a record out, or not maybe not a record, but throwing out a bunch of startings to songs in the garbage, was that's just going like, man, we've done old Cryptodira for two records, an EP, and some singles, the whole night. Like we've done that already. What can we do moving forward that's going to be true to the sound that we've always done and we've always loved, but that's going to evolve in a direction that we're all much happier with. Because as we get older, our influences change a little bit, and what we listen to is changing, or not less that that's changing and more that it's growing, and the repertoire is getting larger. So it was for us, it was how do we take the sort of progressive metal sound that we've been doing that's known for being sort of chaotic and sort of frenzy-esque and keep that sort of interesting vibe to it, but find ways to add texture and find ways to add space and find ways to add new instruments and find ways to make the songwriting more structured and more, tightened up and everything. And can we become the band that is interesting and chaotic and experimental, but also a bit more accessible? Not that we would ever write a song to be accessible necessarily, but
Yeah.
how do we put something that we would be able to hear for the first time and go, that's catchy right off the bat? Like even ourselves, forget about other people's. We write music for ourselves mostly. But just like being able to send each other a song and go like, oh man, that's awesome. Not to convince ourselves or like explain like, oh no, that's actually a cool part because it's two time signatures weaving over. If you have to do that much explanation, maybe it's not that good. And how do we sort of retool things a little bit? So in writing this EP and then certainly subsequently the songs that are thereafter for the record, everything is changed internally for the writing process. I mean, we are purposely making decisions faster. We're saying we're not going to kick this around to all the band members to spin in a circle a million times, end up in the same place. We'll write a song, send it to everybody. Everybody get their thoughts out. We'll make major changes and then demo it immediately. If any worries about nipping around the edges and making the details perfect, the studio guys were so amazing in helping us sort of mature the songs on the fly. Let's put a little more faith in that. Let's not let's not try to make these things perfect. Because every time we've ever done a record, you listen to it a million times before you go into the studio, all your demos, and you go like, I can't think of anything else I want to change. We're finally there. And then you get there, and what's the first thing that happens? Somebody who's never heard the music before goes like, "That part sucks. I would recommend getting rid of it." And you don't have to
Yeah.
listen to these people. We've said no a million times, and sometimes we're right, and sometimes we're wrong. I mean, there's been times where I go, "That's a part that ended up being really cool, and I think they wanted us to get rid of it, but I'm glad we didn't." But I'd say most of the time, hearing that outside opinion from a team that you trust, they're probably right. At least to
Yeah.
some degree. Not just anybody, because we've certainly worked with or heard of bands, I should say, working with producers who are way too hands-on and trying to morph a band into what they're not. But for us, it took us a long time to kind of find the team that we know is going to help us. And we've worked with amazing producers. Like honestly, all of them have been very good. But we finally landed in the studio last time with Greg Thomas and Chris Teddy, and they were they just took such an active role in helping bring these songs to life, and they did so by being very honest with us. So we said, you know what? Those guys are always going to be honest with us. Let's kick these songs around only as much as they need to be. And that's it. And I think that's been a really helpful thing because sometimes things take forever to write and they come out amazing. A lot of times, whatever you thought of second, third, or fourth was really the best idea because you're following your gut and you were kind of picking it apart. So that all
Yeah.
that's to say that the band is changing the way it's writing music essentially at the same time we added a new member, and that just kind of is just feeling like we're being reborn in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Have you seen that helps prevent against burnout? Because I know some like bands and artists are like, especially if they've been holding on to a release for a while, they're like, because like for me, when there's a new release that I really like, I like listen to it a lot, for like maybe a month or so after it comes out. It starts like being occasional, but I'll still listen to it. And then if I really like it, I'll hear it every now and then on shuffle, or it kind of like falls into the abyss of my Spotify library. Like, have you found that that's like by the time a new song comes out, you can still enjoy it or whatnot? Because I know some bands like if they keep things too similar, like on release day, they're like, I've heard this a million times. Like, I know how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of being a band is by the time you put music out, you've heard it an out of control amount of times.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean, there's definitely I've definitely made that joke before, like, oh my God, I can't wait till the song's out, I'm tired of hearing it.
Yeah.
But that being said, it does seem to go away on release day because suddenly there's that jolt of energy of sharing it with people and seeing what they think about it and watching it get sent around the internet and all of a sudden the songs become fresh again to you. So I'd say there's like sort of two moments like that. It's when you're record the songs and you have to sit on them for so long, and then years down the road when you've played it a million times. Those are the two times your ears can get a little fatigued on music. But release day is always it's always exciting. It's always nervous. And then now I can't wait to go play these songs live. Like they're my favorite
Yeah.
songs to play in our practice spaces. The new ones. Like I can't wait. Those are the great. We played a song from the first album in practice, and I'm like, dude, I can do this with my eyes closed. I can't do the song anymore. But I still enjoy it. Once you're on stage, there's no song I wouldn't play. The second we're on
Yeah.
stage, it's a great time no matter what it is. So that's
That's
that all goes
awesome.
away. Yeah.
And I love that mentality of everything kind of like leading into each other. Like you make it and you can't wait to release it, and then once it's out, you can't wait to play it. Like
Yeah.
it all kind of feeds into each other. And so with like it seems like you really love performing live and
Yes.
everything. Do you have a couple live shows that have really stuck in your mind, songs that you love to play live, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, songs to play live. God, I mean, I've always loved the song "Something Other Than Sacrifice," which is the last song on our album, Angel of History. It's a long one, but it just has so many cool moods in it, and the end is just giant. And I always really like kind of like hitting the end riff. Kind of feels like you hit like the finish line of a race, which is cool.
Yeah.
I always like playing that one. And as far as shows, I mean, there's been so many, but one that sticks out to my mind, or two really that stick out to my mind, where when we were in Europe last out with BT Bam, we played in Italy for two shows, and our prior shows in Italy were all okay, they're all pretty good, but like there was times where like there was some struggling crowds or whatever. But we were playing in a smaller town called Rancate, I believe it was, and we had only heard that the Italian progressive metal fans were just rabid, really. And I think it's because the first couple of times we had done Europe, we weren't really playing with like prog metal bands or bands that were perhaps a little heavier. But this time we were out with some proper, progressive metal bands, and we were talking to the guys in Haken, and they said, "Oh, Italy's one of our best countries," and we are like, "Really? That's exciting." So we were playing first in the show, and usually about like maybe 5 minutes, 5, 10 minutes before we play, Mike or I would go out on stage and just turn the tube amps on so they had some time to warm up. And Mike ran out to turn the amps on that day in Italy, and the door had opened maybe a half hour earlier, and we heard what sounded like a stampede. I mean, it was just like a million people just flooded, and they were all running to get to the front rail of the stage. We said, "Man, these guys don't play around. They're not stopping for a beer. They're not stopping at the merch table. They are beeline right to the stage. They're ready to go." And then when Mike went out to turn the amps on, they all went like ballistic, like screaming and yelling and like cheering. And I was like, "I'm just turning on amp." Like nobody was even
Yeah.
playing anything yet. And I was like, man, this is gonna be a fun show. These people are charged up, man. And they were. And the second we hit our first note, people were going completely ballistic. And I was like, I could play this show every day of my life. And then the very next day, we played in Milan, and same sort of thing with the crowd energy, but it's very different because in Roncata it was a much smaller venue and a smaller place, so it had this kind of deep sort of intimacy, and it was very close to the crowd. And then Milan was this giant venue, and it had way more people in it, but we were further away, so that had a very different kind of excitement where you feel like geez, like super tall
Yeah.
ceiling, trusses everywhere, and you're like, this feels like a rock show, you know what I mean? This is cool. But yeah, so there's a couple that stick out to my mind, at least in recent years, that were just really awesome.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome. And so take me back into I kind of did this in the reverse order, but it just seemed to flow so well. Take me back to like the first Cryptodira show and just your first time performing live. What was that like?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I've been playing with our drummer and our guitar player since we were in middle school in different versions of what would eventually become Cryptodira. So
Yeah.
people say when did the band start? I say I don't really know when like this band started, like, but we've been playing since we were like 12 in like different names bands, like playing at like cover band kind of things with our parents watching only,
Yeah.
But as far as Cryptodira, some of the early stuff I remember was just playing in absolute dive bars. There's definitely one, I think it may have been the first proper show under that name, where we were all excited to get going, and we played with a lot of deathcore and metalcore bands when we were kids because that was kind of the only scene around Long Island. There wasn't really any kind of like nerdy metal stuff like we do. And so I told the guy at the show, the sound guy said, "I've seen a microphone stand," and he's like, "Oh man, we don't have one." And I was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean you don't have a microphone stand? Like, that feels like step one for a venue,
Yeah.
But all the other bands were dudes that they just cool bands. They're all just playing breakdowns. They had a singer, and then the guy would just hold the microphone. And I was like, well, I need something. I play guitar while I sing. I need a mic stand. So we grabbed one of our drummers, or no, a different drummer's cymbal stand, and kind of like cocked it the right way and duct taped the microphone to it. And as if that wasn't bad enough, I said, "All right, finally, let's get the show on the road here." And they said they asked me to check the microphone, and I touched on my lip, and it shocked me immediately. And I was like, I just whipped my head back. I was like, "Whoa, man!" I was like, "The thing is shocking me." And the guy's like, "What are you talking about?" And he grabs it, and he's fine. I said, "Hold on a second." So I grab the microphone, and I'm fine. And I'm like, "I'm not getting this." So he says, "Can you test the microphone again?" I put my lip up to it again, shocks me again. And I'm like, "All right, I gotta figure this out." Then I started to realize that anytime I was touching the guitar strings and also touching the microphone is creating like a
Yeah.
grounded circuit in my body and shocking me.
That's
So I
insane.
realized I'm like, well, I have to do this, but I can't touch the microphone at all. And anyone who's ever seen us knows that I get unfortunately very intimate with my microphone when I'm playing. I get very close to it, and the show is very, raucous and sweaty, and I'm not always paying attention to where I'm like, keeping a
It's
distance.
just a natural movement to
Yeah.
like be close to the microphone.
There I am trying to keep like a 6 inch distance, and I got shocked probably 7 or 8 times during the set too. Just a couple of love taps, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the guy just go, "Oh, I don't know, it must be the electricity in the building, man." That's what it was. I mean, and that's happened several times since then, but rarely now as we play in real venues. But like, yeah, I mean, if you don't have like a properly grounded outlet, that will happen. If you're touching two pieces of metal or the microphone plugged into that outlet, and then any other kind of piece of metal, it'll run right through you, man. And that's one of my first shows. I remember just having the worst night. I was like, dude, this sucks. I don't this we can't do this again. We can't play it again.
That's crazy. Are you a music artist looking to get your songs on Spotify, Apple Music, and basically every other streaming platform? then you should check out DistroKid. DistroKid is a music distribution service. It's what I use to get all my music out across platforms, and I find it really helpful. You can manage your songs, lyrics, credits, and even manage releases across artists under one account. I don't think I would have gotten started as early as I did with music if it weren't for DistroKid. So if you want to get started, I'll put their pricing on the screen here. And yes, that does say the cheapest plan is at $2 a month. I know some of you spend more than that every day on your coffees. Like this is to get your music heard by the world. But we're getting off track. DistroKid has so many additional features like pre-save pages, getting your music onto platforms like Instagram and TikTok, where people can put your music on their posts. If you use my link in the description, you will get 7% off any of these plans, making it even cheaper to get your career started, and so much more. So again, check out my link in the description for 7% off any plan. And now let's get back to the episode. Looking towards the future, do you have a bucket list of venues or festivals you want to play live one day?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, there's so many like, especially in Europe, the festival circuit out there is crazy. I would love to play Download, which is obviously a huge one. I know like Grass Pop Metal Meeting is super cool. And there's some cool ones stateside too, like Milwaukee Metal Fest and all that kind of stuff, and Maryland Death Fest. I mean, those things would be cool, but I would just love to do the proper European festival circuit. We've only done a couple festivals out there, and nothing like the proper, full on festival circuit. So that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And so going back even beyond Cryptodira, kind of like we just did here, just like you as a musician, you more personally, what first like got you into music, or what was a moment that you were like, I want to chase this, I want to try this out.
Yeah, so I didn't actually grow up in like the most musical household. I mean, everybody in my house loved music. I shouldn't say that. It's just that no one in my immediate house was playing music. So didn't grow up really with any instruments in the house except for my brother played the violin in school because he had to.
Yeah.
And then I played the violin in school because I had to. And at the time, that's how it felt. But now, as I'm older, I mean, I started to really enjoy playing the violin when I got through middle school and into high school. And I think that's actually what kind of set me up to just to want to play the guitar because I at least knew how to read music to a degree and I understood, your basic sort of rhythmic and melodic concepts and everything. So I remember kind of getting into some of like the radio pop punk that was around at the time, like Green Day and Blink-182 and all that kind of stuff. After I'd already come from like the classic rock world, 'cause my parents listened to like AC/DC and Boston and all that kind of stuff. And a buddy of mine at the time from middle school would ride his bike to my house. And one day he rode his bike to my house with a soft guitar case on his back, and a combo amp, and a little cable. And he just brought his whole little rig to my house for some reason. I guess just to show off and that he could play guitar. And he started playing a bunch of Green Day songs, and I was like, man, that's so cool. That's just so cool that he can like just seeing somebody reproduce something that I loved, but like out of their hands, like was magical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it sounds so simple, but I mean, in the moment, you're like, there's something about hearing it out of this little amplifier as opposed to on a studio recording that's just so exciting to me. And I just yeah, so from there, I told my mom, I was like, I think I want to learn how to play guitar. And my buddy who would rode his bike to my house was like, well, I'm getting a new guitar, so I'll sell you my old one. And I was like, okay. So for my birthday, my mom gave my friend like $100 or whatever. And then that was the guitar, the amp, the case, the cable. I mean, it was all junk. And I still actually own the guitar because it was just sentimental to me. And I've sold
Yeah.
another guitars between them, but I kept the first one. And yeah, so once I started playing guitar, it was just like, taking off from there, man. It was learning every Green Day song under the sun, learning Blink-182 songs, and then I started getting into some like the slightly heavier stuff, classic rock stuff, metal stuff. I was listening to like Megadeth and a little bit of Metallica and like Trivium, Lamb of God, and that kind of stuff. That was pretty big at the time. And then one day, our guitar player's dad gave him Train of Thought by Dream Theater and just blew my like the doors open for me. It changed everything. He was like, "Guys, you got to check this out." My dad gave me this CD. It's super cool. And I'd never heard like a long song that was like 10 minutes long, but all kinds of crazy instrumental stuff. And because I had the slight background in classical music with the violin, I was able to sort of pick up on the weird odd meter stuff that those bands were doing, like Dream Theater and
Hmm.
Opeth and Between the Buried and Me and Dillinger Escape Plan. I was just became obsessed with this rhythmic metric stuff where I was like, this is why is every song in four? Like we can, there's so many cool things out there.
There are other meters out there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like I didn't even know. I didn't really think about that because to me the meter stuff was always in classical, and like
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, there's metal bands doing this. This is awesome. And so it just completely changed the way I looked at music. And from there, I just became obsessed with going down the rabbit hole with weirder and weirder bands. And then, of course, Mike was into the same stuff. Our drummer Matt was into the same stuff. And what do you do when you're all in the same stuff and you play different instruments? You start a band. So
Yeah. Yeah, which is perfect and awesome. And I think it is like where was it? It might have been I was recently reading a book on like the early life of John Lennon and Paul McCartney from the Beatles,
yeah,
and I forget which one of them was saying it. But they were talking about like kind of all the cool like music theory stuff they would do in their songs and everything, and how like a lot of their listeners it kind of went over their heads, but like still they still enjoyed it and whatnot. And I forget which one of them was saying it, but he was saying he thinks like there's something intangible or like built into people with music, which is that like you like everyone kind of knows whether they like a song or not. Even, like, and if you have the theory knowledge, you could be like, oh, I like that chord progression. I like the way this like kind of like rhyme scheme goes or something like that. Versus if you don't have all those terms or all that knowledge, you can still enjoy it. You are a fan and you could be like, I just like it. I like the way it sounds or things, but and even without those terms, you still know that you like it or like that
yeah.
there's something to it. There's something cool going on there.
Yeah, that's exactly it. People don't always know why they like something, but they can usually point out that it's weird. They can be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this song has such a weird. It feels weird." It's like, well, that's because it's in seven or something. And that's the goal for us is to, like I was alluding to earlier, is we want to be able to be the band that people can listen to and go like, "That's so bizarre and weird, but I love it," and they don't have to know why. I don't want it
Yeah.
to just be for nerds.
Yeah, that's perfect. And leads to like you could just listen to it and enjoy it that way, but I'm sure it sounds like with your stuff there's so much to like dig into on a more like technical and theoretical level and find little details of, which is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're
And
not even big theory nerds, honestly. Like none of us went to school for it. None of
that's
us.
fine. Yeah.
I couldn't tell you what like a what key signature most of our songs are in unless I really thought hard about it. But yeah, I mean, there's always intention. Nothing's ever written for no reason with our stuff. So there's always a lot of mathematical motifs. That stuff's very calculated. I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so take me into like, I mean, you kind of had a hint there of just like find similar interests, like people around you. But if there are other bands, musicians just starting out, like wanting to start releasing and playing music, what's some tips or advice that you would give to them?
Uh, I would say well, first of all, just do it and don't
Hmm.
be so worried about how good it is. I mean, obviously you need to hone your craft. But don't be afraid to make mistakes. I mean, put the songs out because you're gonna learn more from your songs after they're out and it's too late than you will when you're writing them. I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing where we've heaved and hoed over things and then you put it out, you look at it, you listen to it 2 years later and you go, why did we do that four times? There should have been eight, and that's the kind of thing. So
Yeah.
so don't overthink it, number one, and do it for the right reasons, man. It's like such a cliche thing to say, but like, goddamn, like it gets a little sick sometimes, like just scrolling through Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and you're just like, why is every band like making a video of them like eating weird food or something? Like it just feels like
Yeah.
and I don't necessarily blame people because there's this pressure that you have to make like a whole bunch of wacky videos to keep everyone's attention and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And there's ways to do those things earnestly without feeling like you're just trying to churn out the content machine. So just get into it because you love music and practice your instrument, please. Just practice.
Yeah.
Do do the classic things that you're supposed to do when you're starting a band. Like write music with your friends, put it out, make mistakes, practice the hell out of your instrument, and let whatever social media stuff come as it comes. You know what I mean? Like it's tough watching some young bands that are brought up in this kind of thing, like try to function inside of this like strange social media conundrum.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, I'm like, where's the music? Like, where? Like, sometimes even with
Yeah,
us, man.
they have hundreds of videos out and whatnot, and you look and they like just put out a debut EP and like that's it, and you're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
come on.
strange. It's strange, and like, I mean, I get it because there's a lot of hats you have to wear in 2025 to be in a band. I mean, I do like a lot of our like any Photoshop design work that the band's putting on, like for graphics for the internet and merch graphics and mock-ups and
Yeah.
video teasers and all this shit. Like we're doing that all in house. So like there are moments where I go like, when am I playing my guitar again? Like I've been in Photoshop and Premiere Pro for the last 2 weeks and I haven't, and my guitar's collecting dust. So like try your best to balance that kind of stuff. Like remember why you're doing it and make sure to take breaks from the internet psychosis to enjoy playing your instrument.
Yeah. No, I get those moments too, like balancing this in the music. I'll be like, okay, gotta work on this episode, make some clips, do that. And then I blink and it's been like 2 weeks since I like opened my latest song that I'm working
Yeah.
on. And I'm like, I also do music. I should try to work on that every now and then
Yeah.
and just like balance the two. And I'm interested in the whole social media conversation because I just tried this of like realizing I need to calibrate because I would put a lot of these episodes out and just kind of let them sit there and do their thing. And then I was like, seeing all these other shows do like put out clips and post clips. And I was like, I know I want to do clips, but it like didn't come naturally for me to like cut up things. Like I was like, I was like, honestly, kind of you could call it arrogant of like why don't people just watch the whole thing like come
Yeah.
and watch the interview,
Yeah.
but like I think for the latest one I have one ready to go or about to be out but the one that just came out with a band called Saritha and Ghoul I was or no before that with Byzantine was like I was like you know what let's go crazy. I'm gonna do like all the clips I can manage in a week before the next episode comes out. I was like, almost as like a test. I was like, I've been doing 0 to 2 clips every episode. Let's see what happens if I go crazy and do like multiple a day. And like, will it actually lead to something? And it did to a small margin, to a small degree.
Right.
I did see some bump, but like it didn't quite match the
The
huge
effort.
new amount of effort I was putting in.
Yeah.
So now I'm back to calibrating of like, okay, I shouldn't do nothing. I shouldn't go crazy with clips. Like where in that middle ground is the sweet spot for me to be. But it can feel like everyone's passing you on the highway. You're like there doing music and doing content on social media when it feels authentic, and then you see there's a band that just was an overnight success. There goes a
Yep.
band just like that had a viral video. So just for you, what's like your thoughts on how involved social media is for the music industry now, and what how do you see Cryptodira getting involved in social media?
I mean, there's nothing you could do about it, is the way I look at it,
Yeah,
unfortunately. I mean, I certainly don't like it. I don't love it. I mean, I think social media has a lot of good, to be honest, but I think what it's doing to music is rough, but my opinion on what it's doing doesn't really matter because it's here to stay and there's nothing anyone can really do about it. So, yeah, I mean, for us, we talk about it more than I wish we did, but we have to. And it's the challenge for us has been finding ways to engage people that like the band in a way that's also fun for us and in a way that's not just like I'm gonna try the new wacky soda. Like I just like I don't identify with that, and that's fine if you do that. It just doesn't work for us. So we got a slew of some social media stuff that's coming. I mean, I know for a couple of our upcoming shows, Mike has actually been taking songs from the other bands that are playing, and then taping himself, essentially writing over them and being like, he has a cool song. Here's me putting a guitar lead over it that I heard in my head, and then just putting that out. And it's a fun way that serves as a way to promote the shows, but also is still creative and still enjoyable to actually do because you can exercise your brain a little bit and play the guitar and all that. For me, I'm a big, lately anyway, I've been kind of becoming a little bit of a gear nerd. So I'm going to be filming a short series of videos that's essentially me recreating some of the tones that we got on the album, but for a live context. Because obviously, when you're in a studio, you have access to a million amps and a million guitars and, post
yeah,
effects and synths and whatever, all the shit that you can't really just have on stage video necessarily. So for me, the fun's been diving into my amp modeler. Everyone's using an amp modeler now, and I dive into my little Fractal FM9, and I get to look around and go, okay, well, how do I make the the acoustic layered with the electric sound, but just on my one electric guitar? So I'm like, well, if I'm spending all this time doing this stuff already, why not share it? Why not show people that? So I'll
Yeah.
be kind of diving into that and have a little screen of my little editor up here so everybody can see as how I play around with the tones and get the sounds, and hopefully that inspires somebody. Because I always like that stuff. I always like to watch bands like explain their gear and explain how they got legendary sort
Yeah.
of sounds, and not that we're necessarily legends or creating legendary music, but I think if one guy thinks it's awesome, then that's fun
Yeah.
content.
No, I think because I get super into like production breakdowns on YouTube of producers and bands and artists that I like, of like them just going like literally opening up like the project file for a song and just like showing you how they made it. It's awesome, and you like you're either gonna get it's great because like you said, it's still creative. You get the people who are already fans of your band because they know the songs and they want to like learn more about you guys and the songs. And then you get people who maybe don't know you but are into that kind of things, or like for your case into the gear, and are like, let me see what these things can do and what I can achieve with this. And then they hear Cryptodira. So it's
Exactly.
just a great way to like stay creative, kind of engage the fans you already have, and not like just throw everything out there for finding an audience or for new fans.
Exactly. Yeah, it's keeping it relevant to what we're doing, at least. Like this
Yeah,
pertains to our music in some way, shape, or form. We're not making fart jokes online or something.
yeah. But it's like because I mean with all this social media stuff also it's same as music, easy to get burnt out, everything, things
Yeah.
like that, and just like kind of feels like a slog sometimes. Has there been, since really like going for it with Cryptodira and maybe even the pandemic, been a moment that like just kind of discouraged you or made you like second guess the band and like what are we doing here?
I've never second guessed the band insofar as like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But I would say I experience social media fatigue and frustration 3 times a week. So
Yeah.
this is
Yep.
not something I'm a stranger to. Like I said, I'm a little bit of an old soul with this stuff. I see its relevance. I see why it's important. And I see why it's helpful. And yet I just I hate it. I really hate it. I hate every minute I have to come up with like every time I have to worry about what time I'm posting on Instagram, my brain
Oh
just
my
tells
God.
me. Every time I have to worry about like, oh, okay, well, what did I put in my caption that made Instagram shatter my reach this time? You know what I mean? And that's the stuff. Those are the moments where I really feel frustrated, and I just go like, I'm supposed to be a guy playing
Maybe it shouldn't be
melodies.
that deep.
Yeah, exactly. Like why am I sitting here Googling what time's the best time to post on Instagram on Friday? Like it's fucking
Yeah.
insane. It's complete lunacy.
And you want to know the craziest thing?
It
There's no
matters.
right answer.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you go to one website and it's like, oh,
Yep.
you should do noon, and then another is like you should do it right as you wake up. Like
Yeah. 7
everyone
a.m.
wakes up,
Yeah.
and it's like it changes every time I look, and it's like, what if I just post when I have something to post?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. But yes, to answer your question, constantly social media fatigued, constantly discouraged by the game because when it comes to playing shows and touring, we excel. Every band we tour with, we've had great relationships with. Crowds always respond very well. When it comes to doing the classic things that bands do,
Yeah.
we excel. When it comes to
Believe
like,
it or not, the actual music side, we got
yeah,
that down.
I like to think we're doing all right when it comes to recording and touring and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, the social media stuff it's a slog, man. It's tough.
Yeah.
We don't write songs that are gonna get picked up as viral TikToks. It's impossible. It's just not the kind of music. So it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's super relatable. I think a lot of people listening, whether they do music or not, are gonna feel like that. So,
Yeah.
just to like slowly start wrapping things up here with some more hypothetical questions, I guess would be the word for it. Just and no pressure to have an answer for these. Have multiple answers if you want. Is there a Cryptodira song that's your favorite? Whether that's to play live, to listen to something that went into making it, like anything like that.
My new favorite is the title track, Genesis of Error, which is the long sort of 9 minute piece that's not released yet. That will be the tail
Awesome.
end of the record. I love playing it. It's very different for us. It isn't as frantic as most of our other songs. And it's been kind of cool to really lay into an idea that develops over the course of the song, and it's got a couple of peaks and valleys in that song that give me chills. So I really enjoy playing Genesis of Air. It's we've never played it live yet. Maybe I'll change my mind because the singing is really hard and I'm gonna hate playing it. But right now, just jamming it in the space, I really enjoy playing that one.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think a lot of bands and artists have that as like whatever the new thing or the
Yeah.
upcoming thing is their favorite. Because oh, who said it? There was one interview I was watching that was like when working on a new song or something, they were like, if it wasn't your favorite thing, you wouldn't be so obsessed with finishing it and getting it out there. Like you're gonna want to work on the things that excite you and get you going. So
It's so true. Yeah, it's cliche as hell, but I'm not here to rank
yeah,
my 10th favorite
exactly.
Cryptodira song. So of course the new ones are my favorite. Yes, every
Yeah.
band will tell you their new record's the best, and only half of them are right. But
Yeah. And then kind of like on a more collaborative note, like if Cryptodira could collaborate with any band, any artist in the world, who would you want to collaborate with?
superstar starstruck level, I would love to do something with like Tool or Dream Theater, but on a more like realistic level, I think there's nothing I enjoy more than collaborating with friends because it really feels like it's very organic then.
Yeah.
You're not begging someone to be a guest on your record or something. It just feels really great when somebody that you really love and care about is like, hey, this song is awesome, and you say, would you want to be on it? And they do. I mean, that's cool stuff. So I mean, any of our friends' bands, we had the singer of Moontooth on a song that was a blast. Our very good friend Sam, who's basically like at times a fifth member of the band, she's guested on like two songs and will continue to. She's basically going to be written into the fold as a recurring guest. So it's always a blast having Sam on. Um, I mean, God, I mean, I would love to do anything with Between the Buried and Me guys. They're good friends of ours now, but I'm still a giant fan, so don't tell them I said that. But having any of those guys on a record would be a blast too, just because they're phenomenal people, phenomenal players, the whole nine. But just off the top
Yeah.
of my head, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And then, EP coming out July 25th. Beyond beyond that, the full length album. So I know there's a lot to look forward to already, but like kind of looking forward as this huge like legacy question. What do you see as like the ultimate goal for Cryptodira? Like what where do you want this band to go in the future?
As long as this band is making music forever, I'm happy. But
Hmm.
of course, in a perfect world, you're making enough money to live on it. I mean, that's the dream, right? I mean, we're
Yeah.
not asking to be stadium famous, but in a world where we could take home enough cash to pay our bills and be happy and not have to have day jobs anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my goals
I
are
think that's
modest.
the
That's
dream
that's
for a
what I
lot of
want.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I want, really.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much for coming on. I've learned so much about Cryptodira and the music you guys make, and I'm even more excited for Genesis of Error, July 25th, the full length beyond it. So thanks for coming on again. And yeah, I can't wait to hear the new music once it's out.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.